Most of you probably don't remember what happened on September 11, 2001, including me, which I was back in like 3rd grade. But this video is going to be giving first-hand accounts about what happened on September 11th, and please just, it'd be nice if you could just pay attention and see the first-hand experiences of what the people from community and the school have put together.
I never will forget, I was working at school. I was working at Cloverport Schools at the time, and I was actually had a phone interview with a course that I had in college, and the attacks occurred right in the middle of the interview, and I can tell you my thoughts were a million miles away from where they should have been as I was answering interview questions.
County, I was getting ready for work that morning, and as I was getting ready for work, I had the television on and I saw on the news that a plane had hit one of the buildings, and at first I really didn't think a whole lot about it, and continued getting ready. And before I walked out the door, I'd heard that a second plane had hit the other building, and as soon as I heard that, I knew that there was some type of attack going on. Of course, I didn't know who it was or what all the details were, of course, at that time, but I knew then that it just wasn't an accident, that it was some type of attack on the United States.
When I found out about the September 11th terrorist attacks, I was sitting in Mr. Price's AP US History class, and it was my senior year.
11, my wife was watching TV and I was in the backyard, and she come running out the door and said they hit the plane that's crashing to the Trade Center. And my first thought was it was just probably an accident. And I think I went up there and was looking at it, went back out doing work again, and then she come hollering again, said another one's hit it. And then I knew it was a terror attack.
September 11th, I was at school. I was in a class, and actually the intercom came on and asked us to turn on the TV, and we actually saw it as it happened on TV.
I was at Audubon Elementary School in Owensboro. Can't really remember what class it was, but I know that when people started finding things out, I remember that everybody was real panicked, and there was a lot of crying.
The morning I found out about the attacks of 9/11, I was listening to the radio driving to class while I was in my last year of college.
I was in my car coming to work, and I heard it on the radio that the World Trade Centers had got hit by a plane. And my first thought was, this pilot must be passed out or drunk or something to run into the building. And anyway, I come to work and turn the TV on, and about a little bit later, another plane hit the other Trade Center. And then I knew something was wrong, and I got mad because of, who would do something like that to America, to our buildings, and to our people and workers that worked in that, in those buildings. It just really got mad. And then when I seen the people hanging out the windows, some was jumping out the windows because of the heat. I just felt compassion for those people. But I guess I went from getting mad to, feeling for others, and just thinking about them and their families, and just the thought of somebody could take our own airplanes and use them for weapons against our citizens.
And I was back in Coach Lamar's office, and I had CNN on watching the news, and they broke in with a news story saying that one of the trade centers were on fire, and they thought a small commuter plane had crashed into it. Thus, we all know what happened since then, and we were actually watching it on TV when the second plane hit, and it was definitely something you'll never forget where you were that morning.
I was actually on planning, and at that time I was in what's currently Mrs. Lasley's room. And I remember it was a beautiful September day. You couldn't ask for better weather, blue skies, perfect temperature. And of course, when word leaked out, first thing we did is turn it on CNN and watched it live.
At the time, it was a very, very eerie feeling, something that I never hope to ever experience again. I know it impacted me, and I think it made me more proud to be an American. If it might be odd to think of it that way, but I think it has brought us more closer together as a nation. And you know, I think it allows us to empathize more for people that are going through situations like that. I think there was a time that we were all at ground zero experiencing the same thing, and
the effect that it had on me is, of course, I'm prior military. I was in the Army for 5 years, and I knew that this wasn't going to be an overnight thing. After all the details of the attack came out, I knew that this was going to take a long time, and to even get to the point that we're at now. But I think it's something that's we're going to have to continue to guard against. That this terrorism's never going to go away, in my opinion. It's always going to be there, and as a country, we're going to have to always guard ourselves for that, because there's always someone that wants to harm us, come into our country and try to make a statement. So this is going to be an ongoing process that may never go away. I hope one day that it does, but it's going to take a long time to get to that point.
I remember that my brother was in Washington, D.C., and there was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon. At that time, he had been working in the Pentagon, and he had moved his offices just 3 weeks earlier, and fortunately he wasn't in that area. But we were very worried. When I saw where that had happened, I was really worried.
The way it impacted me is that it just goes to show you how life is precious. Those people all going to work that day had no idea what was going to happen, and the families who lost loved ones in it, all the firefighters and policemen and everything. The firefighters from this day on are still having problems with diseases, lung diseases, and everything from this war. And mentally stressed the families out. Some of them still can't get over it. And anytime it does things like that to Americans, influences me.
I would say that probably the impact that this had on me the most would probably be just to realize how precious life is, and to remember that there were people that gave their lives, and there were some very brave people who stopped some of the terrorist attacks from actually happening. And just to remember how lucky we are as Americans that we have the freedoms we do, and that we have to do whatever we can to protect those. And that would probably be the greatest impact it had on me.
And it also made me realize that, you know, our freedom it's not free. There's people dying for us, and to prevent things like this. And
as a teenager, I think a lot of times, you know, people feel invincible. I know that I felt that way during my senior year, and that was kind of a wake-up call for us. Us being attacked, our country, in my lifetime, at least not that I remembered up to that point, had never had to deal with anything like that. So that was a reality check. And you know, there were classmates of mine crying. They called us into the gym and talked to us about it. It was pretty dramatic. I mean, it was scary. You know, people didn't know how to take it because we had never had to deal with a situation like that before. So it was just kind of overwhelming.
On 9/11, I was in 2nd grade, and our teacher turned on the TV, and I remember seeing smoke. And seeing New York City in smoke, and that's all I saw. And she had to explain to us what had happened, and we didn't really understand. We were so young. But from then on, when I had a better understanding from my parents, I was just concerned for our country. I didn't know what the future held for our country.
My life. Well, I'm a very trusting person. I trust people, and it kind of I lost trust in people that I didn't know. Most people, like in a few minutes, I could tell whether it's a good person or if I trust them or not. But now, I got to be around them a lot more before I trust people. So that's a major part of how it impacted my life. And secondly, I fly on airplanes occasionally, but I always think about that before, and I get on the plane, and after I get on it, I look at people like, could there be a terrorist on this airplane that I'm on? So I guess mostly what impacted my life is you never know what's going to happen at any time. Every time there's a big event, a big football game or a World Series or some major function, I wonder if there's a terrorist in that crowd. But I guess I just lost a lot of, lost a lot of trust in people where I would used to really trust people. I give them the benefit of the doubt of trusting them, and now I don't. Not people that I don't know. It just takes me longer to warm up to them.
Being from Hancock County, we don't deal with a lot of diversity issues, a whole lot of them. And one of the major impacts it had on me was to realize that people out there are different than what you are. And everybody wants to stereotype and say, the Muslim religion this and the Muslim religion that. And one thing we need to realize is, 1/3 of the world is the Muslim religion. And that's over 1 billion people. And obviously not all of them are the bad guys, and no matter what religion we are, whether we're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, there's bad apples out there no matter what religion you are. And so we have to be really careful not to stereotype 1/3 of the people in the world just because a small fraction, very small fraction, did what they did that day.
For me, it was shocking. It was surreal. In my lifetime in there, America's never been seriously threatened or certainly not attacked. So for me, it felt like something biblical almost was happening. It had a real impact on my way of thinking. I was terrified, enraged, sorrowful all at the same time. So it definitely made a real impression on me, and it was going to be one of the defining things of my generation.